Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Live and Learn podcast. It is Tuesday, September the 23rd, 2025. We are live this evening to get into a bunch of different things with all of you. We're going to talk about a great Monday Night Football game last night in Baltimore, Maryland, between the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. We're also going to start our NHL divisional preview series, previewing the Pacific and Metropolitan divisions, going through them team by team, off-season additions, off-season losses, outlook for these teams going into the season, which starts in 2 weeks tonight, if you can believe it. So it'll be here before we know it. So that's on tap. And then we're going to, back into the program, we're going to talk about some baseball. There's 6 days left in the regular season. The Toronto Blue Jays clinched a playoff berth on Sunday. The Padres clinched a playoff berth last night. So teams are rolling in, but there's still interesting races down the stretch. Blue Jays have not clinched the American League East yet. So still games that have a lot of value, have a lot to be played for. So we're going to look at all of that during today's show. As always, you can find our podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please go give us a like, give us a follow. I appreciate it. Subscribe, then unsubscribe, resubscribe. I'm joking. But seriously, love the support, love the fan interaction. So go give us a follow wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Sunday Night Football was a chore to get through between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Giants in New York. The Chiefs ended up winning. If you missed the game, you didn't miss much. We'll get to the Giants because there's some interesting stuff there. But the Chiefs, 1-2, finally get a win. And they're a 1-2 that's going to get more interesting. And the reason is they play the Baltimore Ravens this coming weekend in Kansas City. And you think, well, Baltimore, one of the best teams in the league. Sure, they lost to Buffalo, but they're right back at it. The Baltimore Ravens dropped a home game to the Detroit Lions last night. A Detroit Lions team that played some of the best offensive football you're going to see. Physical domination at the line of scrimmage. Massive holes in the running game by that offensive line that was shaky in week 1. And Jared Goff doing his thing, being a smart, game-managing, efficient quarterback, leading to the Lions to a big victory on the road in Baltimore. Really impressive. So now you got Baltimore, Kansas City, both at 1-2. They play each other in week 4. Meaning one of them will be 1-3 by the end of this upcoming weekend. Who the hell saw that coming? But it's going to happen. And if you look at the stat line last night, Lamar didn't play bad. And I don't think he did, quite frankly. He was solid. Made some really impressive throws like he does. Efficient in the middle of the field, whether it was to Kolar or backup tight end Mark Andrews, had a big game. But he got sacked 7 times, led by Aiden Hutchinson, who was a beast last night, as well as Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone, who are just phenomenal linebackers for the Lions. Sacked 7 times. They fail on 4th down. In a pivotal moment. 3 plays from the 1 they can't score, having Derrick Henry. And then for the 3rd consecutive game, Derrick Henry fumbles. The only running back in football to have fumbled in the first 3 games of a season. Brutal for Derrick Henry. He lost it on the sideline, and they couldn't recover. Detroit not only wins the game They win the game outright. It's a 4.5-point dog. I had Detroit plus 4.5. So there's a winner in a bad week 3 betting for me, just being honest. Baltimore seems to win games where they can front run, when they get a big lead, but struggle in games where it's tight the whole way through. Week 1, Buffalo, they blow it. Close late, they lose. Close against Buffalo in the divisional round last year, they lose the game. They blow out Cleveland. Okay, great. Doesn't mean everybody can do it. The Green Bay couldn't do it. But Cleveland's not a threatening team. Cleveland will not be a playoff team. They'll finish last in the AFC North in all likelihood. Because I look at, you see Lamar, and he's just incredible what he can do at the quarterback position. And Mark Andrews can still play. He's not over his skis. And Derrick Henry, despite the fumbles, is still one of the best backs in football. Hasn't come up big in tight moments. I think John Harbaugh can be a bit of a old school coach in the wrong environments. And what I mean by that is Dan Campbell is push it all the way. We're going to try to win. We're going to go for it on 4th down. We're going to run creative plays and hope for the best. You see, flea flicker, huge play last night. One of the most creative plays I've ever seen. 4th down, Jared Goff, pitch to Amon-Ra St. Brown, then pitch to Jahmyr Gibbs, touchdown. And that wasn't in the Ben Johnson. That's more of a creative play than Ben Johnson ever created in Detroit. There's just something about Baltimore that doesn't work. They're always great. I think the Bills get labeled as a team that can't win. At least Buffalo gets to championship games. This Baltimore team with Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and their cast of characters have never gotten to an AFC championship game. Never. That's absurd. This team should be winning Super Bowls. It's far more talented than Kansas City. It's a more talented team than Buffalo. It's a more talented team than the Chargers. I don't think they'd beat the Chargers straight up. If it's a close game, I don't know. These Chargers look different. And I'm not blaming Lamar for last night's loss. Could he have been better? Sure. A few of the sacks, he held the ball a little too long. But it's a structural, fundamental issue that this team has, and they can't get over it. They can't seem to get over that hump of being, that team that's great in all facets, wins in all facets, and it just dominates. They don't. They're not that team. And it's frustrating. Because unlike Baltimore, Detroit, who had an awful week, destroyed by the Packers on all facets, quarterback play, offensive line, defense, they've answered the bell. Put up 52 against the Bears. You might say, okay, it's the Bears. Well, win's a win. And then you go on the road to Baltimore on a Monday night, crazy environment in Maryland, and you win the game outright. Not just cover the spread, win the game outright against one of the best teams in the AFC in interleague play, if you will. Their defense is getting better. Their offense, no Ben Johnson, how is this going to look? It's responding. It's looking a lot more competent. Jared Goff was awesome last night. Pull up his statistics. They ran the ball for over 170 yards as a team. They did whatever the hell they wanted. Pardon me, I forgot about Montgomery's second touchdown. As a team, Detroit ran for over 220 yards last night in Baltimore. Jared Goff, 20 for 28, 202, one touchdown. He had an awesome game. Awesome game. Smart. Made the right decisions. Montgomery averaged 12.6 yards per clip last night, including a 72-yard touchdown. Detroit just had it. Minute 59, right after 2-minute warning, fourth down, go for it. Huge pass from Jared Goff to St. Brown. Beautiful throw, beautiful catch, sealed the win. Lions are legit. Lions are back to me. 15-2 last year. They still have a really tough schedule, but they're going to be a playoff team. I trust Jared Goff. And Dan Campbell, he might not be the greatest offensive coach. He might not be the greatest defensive special teams, whatever he does. He's a team builder, team concept, team fundamentals coach. We are going to be aggressive the entire game, not be afraid of anybody, and live with the consequences. And I love that idea. I love that structure. The NFL used to be, let's play safe, otherwise known as let's play scared, and it would win you a lot of games, quite frankly. When did the Patriots ever really play fun? When did they really play, we're going to outscore you, outshoot you? They did it one year when they had Randy Moss, and they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. Otherwise, Brady, 6-yard out, Brady, 6, James White for 4 yards, and they beat you that way. And no shade, championship's a championship. Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. But I think there's more than one way that you can win. And Detroit is going to win or lose their way. But I respect the hell out of doing it their way. One of the great songs of all time, My Way by Frank Sinatra. Go out your way. Die on your sword. Baltimore, to me, it was right at the end of the first half, and they gave the ball to Derrick Henry 3 straight times at the 1, and they didn't score. He looked really irritated. He didn't want to hand the ball off, and I don't know that. I'm reading body language. To me, it looked like a guy that was saying, give me the ball in this situation. Let me do it. They did on 4th down and went to hell in a handbasket, but it was too late. I think Lamar wants even more control of this offense than he already does. Because he's probably thinking, I can make a good play. Derrick Henry averaged 4 yards a carry last night. Lamar Jackson averaged 5. 21 for 27, 288, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he was locked in. He was ready to go. Baltimore's got to fix some issues and be ready in big moments because I think they're out-coached, out-game planned, out-schemed in the crucial moments of games. I think it's been that way for some time. They get Kansas City Sunday afternoon in Arrowhead. Could be 1-3 on the season. I'm not panicked about them. Playoff team, even if they lose to Kansas City on Sunday, and I don't think they will. And as of Sunday night, they were the favorite going into that game against Kansas City. I can find that line for you because I wrote it down. They were a 3-point favorite Sunday night. This is before the game. We'll talk about the line more on Thursday night's podcast. Even with the loss, I think they're going to be a slight favorite in Kansas City on the road. That's Vegas telling you they don't trust Kansas City. And also they really like Baltimore. Baltimore will still win that division. They'll still be a playoff team. And they lost to a really good team. Detroit's a 10-plus win team again this year. They're a playoff team again this year. Really well coached, good quarterback, good players. No shame in the loss. How it happened, how it continues to happen, that's the bigger story. They lose every close big game that they're in, and that's not really hyperbole. They have more fourth quarter leads that have been blown in the NFL over the last 4 years than any other team. I put that on John Harbaugh. You're the coach. Figure it out. Other NFL news. Giants-Chiefs was an awful game. Awful. But it happened. So, game's over. Russell Wilson had a stretch at the end of the fourth quarter where he went 3 straight passes and he threw the ball out of the end zone. Including on fourth down, he threw a ball out of the end zone, which I never quite understand. It's fourth down. I will take an interception over throwing it out because at least the interception, you have a chance of a touchdown, making a play. It's over. If you don't convert, you turn over on downs. But that happened. He was booed. Jackson Dart came in for a play in the second quarter. He was given lots of cheers. So they want a change in New York. And they're going to get one. Announced today by Adam Schefter of the Mothership, Jackson Dart will make his first career NFL start this upcoming Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Giants have the toughest schedule in football based on last year's result. 0-3 on the season. Look completely erratic. Malik Neighbors looks like he's ready to fight somebody in the sideline, mainly Brian Dable. So all that being said, this is going to happen. This was bound to happen. And Chargers, tougher game, for sure. Tougher opponent. They have the Saints in week 5, which Saints on the road would have been more ideal. But look at the Giants. Chargers, that's upcoming Sunday at home, at Saints, Eagles, at Denver, at Philly, San Francisco. Bears, Packers, Lions, Patriots, bye week, and then it gets easier towards the back end of the season. But October, November, it is Murderer's Row for New York. Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, last year, their contracts, they know what's up. This team hates Russell Wilson. I think the players do, and I think the fans do. They need something. Jackson Dart's going to come in. He's going to have his growing pains like Cam Ward has in Tennessee, where it's been up and down with him. I thought this past week was his worst of his 3 games so far in the NFL. And that's going to happen. Just learning and also just playing on a bad team. And the Giants are a bad team. We haven't seen Tyler Shuck yet with the Saints. I expect we will at some point this season. He was a 5th-round pick. So that might happen. But rookies need time. Jackson Dart is behind a okay offensive line. Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson are both really good players. Bellinger and Theo Johnson are solid tight ends. Not game breakers, but solid tight ends. The Giants' defense is pretty solid all in all. Corner, it's a bit weak, but they have a really good front. Defensive front. Jackson Dart gives them a better chance to win, and it gives the city a jolt, something to look forward to. You have a home game, and I think they were backed into a corner where they had to make this decision. And ultimately, I do think it's the best decision for the team, and I do think it's the best decision for the head coaches because I think they want to remain employed. And if he can connect with the offense and play better, maybe they have jobs going into 26-27. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. But it went from a game that I don't care. The Giants are boring. Russell Wilson looks like he's ready to hang him up. Probably a Hall of Famer. 10 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowl appearances. Really good career. But a game that the Chargers would have been a big favorite as of Sunday night. I can find that for you here. As of Sunday night, the Chargers were, let's see here, 5.5-point favorite on the road. If anything, I think that line might go down because Jackson Dart's playing. Because I think some people might have some money on the Giants coming in. But had to happen for the team morale, had to happen for just that city, for people to show up to the building to watch that game because the product on the field is just it's no good. Simple as that. Other NFL news, some devastating injuries. Nick Bosa, former Rookie of the Year, great player, suffered a torn ACL for the second time in his career. This one's on his left knee. Previous was on his right knee. So San Francisco without Ayuk till the midpoint of the season, without George Kittle at the moment, without Brock Purdy at the moment, although it does sound like he might play this upcoming weekend. Lose Nick Bosa for this. Their defense has been great under Robert Saleh, who returns after his failed experiment as a head coach with the New York Jets. San Francisco's 3-0. But injuries catch up with you. And I think it might with this team. Because they're not as talented as they used to be. They have a lot of holes. They play in a very competitive NFC West full of very good teams. I feel bad for the player. He's such a great... When he's on the field, he's phenomenal. He's had a couple season-ending injuries. His brother, Joey's also a guy that's been injured a ton in his NFL career. He's now playing for the Bills, not as impactful as a player as he used to be. But I'm sure Nick Bosa will be back, be given an opportunity. But the outlook for San Francisco this year is bleak. It's tough. Because they're just so wounded. And it's so hard to overcome that. And to win. Maybe it happens. I have nothing against San Francisco. I admire them and how competitive and consistent they've been over the years. But this injury can be a backbreaker, and it's a really hard one just to overcome, quite frankly. They still have Fred Warner, and Fred Warner's awesome. But they lost Dre Greenlaw in the offseason. They lost Hufanga, who's now in Denver. So they're missing key parts already, and then you lose Nick Bosa. We'll see with San Francisco. Being 3-0 to start, huge deal for them. In the same game, James Conner, fractured ankle, will miss the rest of the season for Arizona's top rusher. Looked ugly if you were watching the game, and needs surgery. Will miss the entirety of the season. He's in his 30s now. I wouldn't say he's a long-in-the-tooth running back, but an injury like this certainly can put a big kibosh in his career. Started his career with the Steelers, goes to Arizona, has had a ton of success. And he's been really good for them and kind of been a heartbeat of that locker room in Arizona for a long time. Arizona also plays on Thursday night against Seattle. So they're going to be down a running back, obviously, for the rest of the season, but starting on Thursday on a short week, coming off that loss to San Francisco. Pair of 2-1 teams, a fascinating game, a good game. But Trey Benson, who is going to be the guy now. He had 10 carries for 42 yards in the game. He needs to run the ball more. Kyler does enjoy to run. They have other guys, but it's a massive hole for Arizona. And they have their own problems. Marvin Harrison can't catch the ball, and he looks slow as hell. So we'll see. And also, Mike Evans hurt his hamstring in the win against the Jets. He's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. Had a hamstring injury last year, missed 3 games. So seems to be something that's repetitive for him. In Tampa, without 2 offensive linemen. Without Jalen McMillan, without Chris Godwin, without now Mike Evans for a month probably. A wounded team. But again, they're 3-0. Baker Mayfield's awesome. Tampa hosts Philadelphia this week. That's a 2 p.m. kickoff, which should be one of the better games of the week. But injuries, typically they catch up with you. No matter how good your team is, no matter who you have at quarterback, if you don't have depth, you're screwed. Typically. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but Tampa should be in tough this weekend against Philly. Philly 3-0, Tampa 3-0. So that's the football update. On Thursday night, we will go over the Week 4 betting lines, including previewing the Thursday night football game between Seattle heading to Arizona to play the Cardinals, which is, like I said, a good Thursday nighter. Like that Thursday nighter. And then you got Rams, San Francisco the following Thursday. So a pair of NFC West. Great games. I'm all for that. Okay. Hockey starts 2 weeks from tonight. In 2 weeks at this time, a game will have been halfway finished. First game of the season starts at 6 p.m. Atlantic time. So a game will have started. We will be getting into it to start the NHL season. And tonight and next Tuesday, I will be previewing the 4 divisions and looking at what teams have done in the offseason to get better. And we'll go through all of it. Tonight, I'm going to do Pacific and the Central. So do the West Coast, and next Tuesday night, we will do the Metropolitan and the Atlantic and handle the Eastern Conference. So let's start with the Pacific Division. And there's a number of teams that are hoping to get better and jump into an echelon where they can compete with the best of this division. For the last number of years, the Los Angeles Kings, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and the Edmonton Oilers have been the class of the Pacific. Vancouver has had a quick moment in the sun. Occasionally, you see Calgary creep their head out. But these 3 teams, in a sport that really talks about parity, hasn't had a whole lot of parity in the top teams. The team I would view as being at the bottom, hoping to crawl out and be competitive at some point, would be the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks, who I think have done a lot of really good things, who have drafted well, recruit talent, and have a trump card in Macklin Celebrini, who had a great rookie season, is on the top 50 of TSN's best NHL players, is in the high 30, I think he was 38, I read today. And so you have that prospect who's great already. They drafted Michael Misa, who had over a ton of points last year, 2nd overall in the draft this past year in Los Angeles. Very good chance he makes the team out of camp. So you're going to have 2 youngsters alongside youngsters like Will Smith, who's awesome. Kasper Hultinen, another guy that will be eligible to play the American League. He can go back and forth. A Finnish goal scorer. You'll remember him from the London Knights. You'll remember him from the World Junior Hockey Championships. I think he'd be a great goal scorer. William Eklund, another young player that can have an impact. Sam Dickinson, a London Knights defenseman. Good puck mover, can do a lot of different things. And then you have also Yaroslav Askarov, who has never really been given the chance to be a number 1 goaltender in the league. And that's kind of frustrating to me because I think he should. And I think he will this year with him and Alex Nedeljkovic being the goaltending tandem in San Jose. But San Jose is returning a similar team. They add Ryan Reeves, Jeff Skinner, Philip Kurashev comes over from Chicago. Adam Gaudette, they signed, who was with the Ottawa Senators last year, who was a surprising, productive, really good season for the Sens. They bought out Marc-Edouard Vlasic, one of the better defensemen in franchise history. Heart and soul guy, was awesome when he was. Age caught up with him. The speed of the game caught up with him. And that happens. But like I said, one of the best players in franchise history, no doubt about it. Vinny Darnay, I think Sam Dickinson will make the team. Mario Ferrari, John Klingberg comes over from Edmonton. They got Liljegren, who they traded with for Toronto last year, and Dmitry Orlov is also now a member of the San Jose Sharks. Looking at the roster, it's unlikely that they finish anywhere first or second in this division. My curiosity is, do they finish dead last? I don't think it's an automatic yes, and it's been an automatic yes in years past. I look at teams that have less talent than San Jose in this division. And we'll get to a team next that I think is going to struggle with. But I think this year it's about Celebrini's sophomore year. Does he continue to go in that upward trajectory? Will Smith to get better? Eklund, Michael Misa to have an impact. I think San Jose, at the very least, is going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be young. They're going to make a lot of mistakes, probably not be very savvy at protecting the puck. But if you're Tuesday night, you can't sleep, you go, San Jose's playing Anaheim, I'd throw that game on. Because I think that's a fun watch. There's intrigue there. So I actually don't think that San Jose is going to finish last in the Pacific. And might be a hot take, but I'm not going there for me. I like where they're going. I think in a perfect world, they get another top 5 pick to add to their stable of good young guys. And I think perfect world next year, you have a team that you can start to say, we're going to have realistic goals of making the playoffs, being competitive, and not being a bottom feeder in the Western Conference. So a couple teams you could go to when it comes to last place, potentially, where's this team going to go? The Seattle Kraken. Seattle, it's funny that they're in the same division as the Vegas Golden Knights because they did not get the bump. They did not get the rush coming into the league that Vegas did. Their draft did not go as well because teams had a book on what Vegas did to fleece the league and then ultimately getting to a Stanley Cup final in year one, which is still one of the greatest feats in sports history, if you ask me, an expansion team to do that. Seattle hasn't. In 4 years of existence, they've made the playoffs. So 5 years, they've made the playoffs once. One playoff round. And they're now with their third coach. Lane Lambert comes over from Toronto. Former head coach with the Islanders, was an assistant with Toronto. They fired Dan Bylsma after 1 year. And they had Mason Marchment, who I like. Joe Veleno comes over. Frederick Goodrow comes over from the Minnesota Wild. But this year, they're aiming for bounce backs from a number of guys. Number one for me, Matty Beniers. For this team to be good, for this team to be relevant, he needs to be a 25 to 30 goal scorer, and I lean towards the 3 number. Because I like Jordan Eberle, but he's a third-line winger, and he's probably going to get you 45 points. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's who he is. Capo Caco just hasn't been what I thought he could be. Or what the New York Rangers thought he could be, evidently, because they got rid of him. Edward Saleh, fun Czech player who I think will get some time this year. Shane Wright, credit to him, had a pretty good season last year quietly because, again, it's a Seattle team that doesn't have a whole lot of flair, doesn't have a whole lot of reason for you to watch them. Jagger Firkus, a young player that could make the team, have an impact this year. And then Vince Dunn is their best player, top to bottom for me. He's great. He led the team in scoring last year as a defenseman. That's an issue. Riker Evans is fun. Adam Larson, solid. They add Ryan Lindgren, comes over formerly of the Rangers and was sent to Colorado at the deadline. Brandon Montour had some health issues, still great. And Jamie Alexiak with Joey Decord, Philip Grubauer, and they also signed Matt Murray as insurance. This could be a last place team. 100%. Because I think the Pacific is tough. I do. And I look around and go, where scoring coming from? This is a team that averages 2 goals a game. That's not going to win you many games. Grubauer, every year he seemingly has one of the worst goals against average and save percentages in the league. That doesn't help. Joey Decord is actually the better goalie. He should be the starter. Matt Murray will get starts this year for Seattle, in my humble opinion. Their defense can put up points, but you can only defend so much. And quite frankly, their 2 best offensive players are Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour, both defensemen. And I will make this argument until the cows come home, and it'll probably make my father's head shake, my mother's too for that matter. No team that has to play 2 defensemen together on a top power play unit is going fucking anywhere. Period. If you play 2 defensemen, I hate the look and I automatically think less of your team. It's 4 forwards, 1 D on a top power play unit. The mop-up duty, who cares? Nobody even knows they're on the ice. No 2 defensemen. It's a new age of NHL. That's old school. That'll win you something in the 80s. It's not winning you jack shit now. The best power plays don't have 2 defensemen. Toronto's doesn't. Edmonton's doesn't. Los Angeles Kings don't. When in the history of the Washington Capitals did they ever have 2 defensemen on the same? Oh, no, wait, they didn't. They said Alex Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer of all time. I'll stand by that point. Seattle, to me, is just another year where I look at them and go, bad ratings, low win total, irrelevant. Unfortunately. I could be wrong. I don't think I will be, though. Anaheim Ducks. New coach in Anaheim. Joel Quenneville makes his return to the National Hockey League. About damn time, my first sentiment. He comes in. They needed a change. Plus, when you can get Joel Quenneville, you fire the coach. John Gibson gets traded to Detroit. He's finally gone. Took a minute for that to happen. About 5 years to get that trade done. Trevor Zegras also got traded. So Chris Kreider comes in, joining his old mate Jacob Trouba from the Rangers. They got Ryan Poehling, Peter Mrazek also in the offseason. Young and old. That's how I would describe this team. You got Leo Carlsson, Bennett Seneca, who they took 3rd overall last year. He's a guy I look at could make the team. I don't know if he will because Quenneville's old school. But remember, he was the guy that didn't get picked for the World Junior team and then went and lit it up. He had an awesome year in the OHL. And this is why, he's a guy like Mitch Marner when he had to go back and play for London. There's no reason for him to go back and play. Really isn't. No reason. But he might have to because of stupid rules and just the way it works. But Bennett, Seneca, Carlson, they added Mikhail Granlund, Cutter Gauthier, young player, Troy Terry, Ryan Strome, Radko Gudas, the veteran, Trouba, Zellweger, Drew Hellison, youngsters on the back end. I love Duchtal, their goalie. Haven't signed Mason McTavish yet, so he's not at camp. That's a bit worrisome. As I mentioned, I think he could be traded to Toronto. Don't know if that'll happen, but we'll see. I think Anaheim is okay. not threatening at all. Not going to be a playoff team in this division because I think it's top heavy as bleep still. I don't think we'll see a whole lot of changes, and maybe we'll see a Canadian West Coast team squeak in, but I don't think we see significant changes in the playoff teams in the Pacific Division. We'll see. Let's stay in this general area. Let's move over to Los Angeles. Biggest news from LA, Anze Kopitar announced that this is going to be his last season. The longtime captain, the future Hall of Famer, his last year in the league. Selke winner, multiple-time Stanley Cup champion. He's been the heart and soul of that team. A captain from Slovenia, and he's kind of just adopted that city. Him and Luka now, both from Slovenia, both rocking LA. For LA, they traded Jordan Spence to the Ottawa Senators. Fresh start for the kid from PEI. They lose Vladislav Gavrikov. He goes to the Rangers, gets a big free agent deal there. They bring in Cody Ceci. They bring in Brian Dumoulin, Andrei Kuzmenko. Yoel Armia comes over from Montreal. Corey Perry comes over from Edmonton. He's going to be out the first month or so of the season with a knee injury. So they spent $4 million per season on Ceci, over $3 million a year on Dumoulin. Joel Edmondson, it's an older defense with a younger guy like Mikey Anderson and Brant Clark, who they're still hoping, I think they hope can morph into the next Doughty. TBD. That's a tough scale. Still have Byfield, Dano, Kevin Fiala, Warren Fogle, Adrian Kempe, Trevor Moore. What do we know about LA? They're a playoff team. And they play Edmonton in the first round and they lose. They have for 3 consecutive years. Well, 4 consecutive years, pardon me, I forgot. 4 consecutive years they've lost to Edmonton in the first round. That's hard to do, to be that consistent. Kemper, Anton Forsberg comes over from Ottawa as well to be the backup. I'm not sold on this team this year. It's older. It's got a lot of pitfalls in it. Kemper was so good last year. We have to remember how good Darcy Kemper was. Is he that great again? Can he repeat? He was third in the Vezina. That's how good he was. So there's some potential worries there. So some potential troubles. Likely a playoff team, will be competitive. Kopitar's last year, I think they'll be motivated to win and do well by him. But I see this team trending down and not trending up. And I do think there's some other teams in this division that could cause some problems. Let's go to Calgary. Calgary had a busy offseason. Wasn't all through additions because they didn't make that many additions. They were returning a very similar team. But they gave Dustin Wolf a 7-year extension at over $7 million a year. Matty Coronado got a 6-year deal at over $6 million a year. And Michael Backlund got a 2-year extension worth $3.5 million a year. Just keep their captain, keep their goalie that they think could be a Vezina winner, and Coronado was a nice depth. I think they see him as a second-line winger that could do some damage. But you look, Coleman, Huberdeau, Farabee, and Frost, who they acquired midway of last year, Kadri, Samuel Honzek, Martin Pospisil, Sharon Govich, Connor Zary, Zane Pekaresh, who's fighting to make the team, Kevin Ball, Joel Hanley, Daniil Maramanov, Mackenzie Weegar. And then you have Rasmus Andersson, probably the most interesting member of the team, entering the last year of his contract. Sounds very unlikely he's going to sign an extension. Wants to move elsewhere. Doesn't want to play his whole career in Calgary, which his right. He can do whatever the hell he wants. So good on him. But how does Craig Conroy and his staff approach this? What do you do with a player you're not going to keep? I think we might see a lot of these this year. We're going to talk about Minnesota. They got a player that I think could be moved at some point this season. I think Rasmus Andersson gets traded at some point this year, unless Calgary is in a very clear setup of making the playoffs. I think if you're not locked, you have to trade him. Period. Because you cannot lose a player of that caliber for nothing. So tough situation with him, knowing with a guy you know you're likely not going to get back. Overall, I like the team. I think they're feisty, just like they were last year. If they have a better start, they would have made the playoffs last year. They missed just by a little bit. Zane Pekeresh is a guy that I think is going to make the team out of camp. Does he stay the whole year? TBD. But again, he's a player going back to junior. It does him no benefit. He's been one of the best junior defensemen, honestly, of all time. And that's really not being hyperbolic. Will be 20 in February. 23, 24, 66 games, 96 points. He's a defenseman, by the way. 24, 25, 61 games, 107 points, 33 goals, 74 assists, plus 42. So, 9th overall pick in 2024. They can use him. He can play. They need him on that back end, quite frankly. He's sticking for at least the first 8 games to see what he can do. Worst, you send him back and he plays for Canada at the World Juniors in Minnesota. I think we're going to see some guys make the team because they're good enough to do it this season. Vancouver. Very disappointing season last year. Debacle, trading JT Miller, the Pettersson saga. He's now the captain of the Rangers, which is hilarious. Elias Pettersson not in the TSN top 50. You got Quinn Hughes openly talking about wanting to play with his brothers at some point. He's got 2 years left on his deal, including this one. Dakota Joshua gets traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Artur Shilovs gets traded to Pittsburgh, who they're going to lose anyway through waivers. They add Evander Kane. They re-sign Brock Besser to a big extension that kind of came out of nowhere. It's a fresh start, fresh season. Evander Kane's healthy starting the year. Philip Hedl will start, have a full year training camp. DeBrusk, Connor Garland, who had an awesome season. Elias Pettersson. They bring over Pierre-Olivier Joseph. They have Tom Wallinder, a Swedish defenseman who was at Boston College, who I think will make the team out of camp. Was really good. And they got Thatcher Demko and Kevin Lankinen, one of the better 1-2 punches at goalie in the league. Probably the best. The best goalie tandem in the league. And if Thatcher Demko is healthy, he can win you a lot of games. For Vancouver, Pettersson needs to wake the hell up and be the player that he's capable of being. If Pettersson plays at an elite level, Vancouver can make the playoffs. And they can be one of the 3 seeds in the Pacific, because I think at their best, Vancouver is better than the Los Angeles Kings. I don't think they're quite as good as the next 2 teams that we're going to talk about, but can they be third in the Pacific Division? Absolutely. I think they're better than Calgary. They're better than the 3 San Jose and those teams. And LA, has been more consistent than Vancouver. If Vancouver can get health and productivity from their best players, they can leapfrog the Los Angeles Kings. No doubt about it. Boeser needs to score goals. Evander Kane needs to be locked in, motivated. Quinn Hughes is the second best defenseman in the world. I'm not concerned about him. Really am not. He can do it all. But if you look, Pettersson, Boeser, DeBrus, Lekkerimäki, another young player, Hedel, Evander Kane, Hoglander, Bluger, Garland, Atu Ratti, Drew O'Connor, Kiefer Sherwood, Hronek, Quinn Hughes, Marcus Pettersson, Tyler Myers, Elias Pettersson, Forbert. I'd have Wallinder in there. And the two goalies, that's a good team. And a team that you could add to at the deadline to make better. To make sure you get into the playoffs. I don't trust Pettersson, though, so it's a scary bet. It really is. Let's move to Vegas. We know Vegas' big move this offseason. It was getting Mitch Marner from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mitch Marner comes over an 8-year deal worth $12 million. They send Nick Waugh the other way. And Vegas adds him to the mix of Eichel entering the last year of his deal, Thomas Hertl, Bill Carlson, Mark Stone, Barbashev, Dorofeyev, Riley Smith. A very good team that can contend for a Stanley Cup right away. No doubt about it. How will Marner fare? He's on a line with Eichel to start training camp. I think he's going to have a good season because he always has good regular seasons. Leaf fans might hate him. Okay, you're entitled to that opinion. He's always been good. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. Not up for debate. Look at his penalty kill stats. How they do in the playoffs remains to be seen. You know, they'll get there. They're either finishing 1 or 2 in the Pacific. The way I look at them, I think the biggest weakness for Vegas is their goaltending. Aiden Hill, Akira Schmid. I don't trust either of them. Aiden Hill is probably going to be on Team Canada's goaltenders. That tells me more that Team Canada sucks at developing goalies, quite frankly. And yes, he's won a Stanley Cup, but they took 3 goalies to win a Stanley Cup. So, not a whole lot of security there. They lose Nick Hague. Petrangelo's also likely done for the season. Significant injuries for him. They add Jeremy Lauzon from Nashville. They still have Hannafin, Ben Hutton, McNabb, Shea Theodore, Zach Whitecloud. I like their defense. They have depth at defense as well in the minors. But I look at their goaltending and I go, scares me a bit. They'll score goals. They'll have a good power play. They'll be physical with Stone and Saad. And Kolasar's a big bastard. And Brett Howden's tough. And Barbashev, Sissons, those 2 guys will hit anything that moves. I think they'll be one of the top 2 seeds in the Pacific. But Vegas is always big game hunting. And I'm wondering, sure, there's big fish around the league. There's always talk about Crosby being traded or McDavid potentially or other, Kaprizov. What about if a team has another really bad season, you decide to trade a goal? What if it's, we're going to talk Nashville. What if it's UC Saros that gets dealt? I'd feel a lot more comfortable with Vegas being a Stanley Cup contender. They're a Stanley Cup contender that I pulling on the rope a little bit. And that brings me to Edmonton. Edmonton, who's been to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, losing to Florida both times, as we all know. And they have the biggest story in the NHL with Connor McDavid, the best player in the league, not having a contract for next year. And why it would be resolved anytime soon, I don't know why it would. Because if he's going to sign a 2-year extension today, what would be the difference from signing it yesterday? The more I get into this, I'm thinking he's not going to sign an extension. I thought he would. But why the delay if he's going to sign it in 2 weeks? I don't get it. Why the hoopla? Why the conundrum of it all? The team's the team. The draft picks they have, they're not going to get a whole lot better. They've kind of emptied the cupboards, if you will, trying to keep this team competitive. And this offseason, they salary dump Evander Kane to Vancouver, a heated rival. Sure, you free up $5.5 million, but you also lose Evander Kane, and you get nothing for him. Victor Arvidsson, you trade to Boston. Good salary dump. He needed to go. They traded Sam O'Reilly in the deal to get Isaac Howard from Tampa Bay, the Hobie Baker winner. Connor Brown leaves. They didn't want to lose Connor Brown, but he leaves in free agency. They couldn't afford him. So, and they also gave Bouchard a massive extension. They talked about upgrading their goaltending. It's still Stu Skinner and Calvin Pickard. So they're running it back with those two. So Isaac Howard, I'd see two guys on this team, Isaac Howard and Matt Savoy. Two youngsters that they're hoping can have an impact and play good hockey. And I would even look at Vasily Podkolzin, who's been in the league a lot longer, but got an extension today, a little under $3 million a year. Was a first-round pick way back when with Vancouver. I think they're looking at him saying, we need you to be more than what you have been. And I saw today they're going to start the season on the same line, Draisaitl and McDavid. I hate that. I hate it. They're good enough to play a part, and you need to build up some of these players. Play Podkolzin with Draisaitl. Get him some confidence. You can go 97, Leon, Nugent Hopkins. 3C. 4C, Henrique or Trent Frederick. That's a pretty damn good 1-4. Not many teams are matching that. Majanapani they added as well. I like Majan. I like the addition. It didn't cost him a whole lot of money, and the kid can play, and he plays his tail off. Bouchard, Josh Brown, Ekholm, Emberson, Darnell Nurse, Kulak, Stetcher, Wallman. So they do have good depth in the back. A lot of guys that have played in the NHL that when injuries, not if, when injuries pop up, they can deal with it. It's not as good a team as they were last year, and they weren't good enough to win the Stanley Cup last year. And I think that's the biggest reason why McDavid's not signing an extension. We are getting worse, not better, and we can't win. So how would it make sense for me to think I'll stay here and we're going to win? Maybe they can. Maybe they can get to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals because Florida's looking to get their 4th, and Florida got the 3 in a row, and Tampa got the 3 in a row. And I do think entering this season, they're the best team in the Pacific because I trust they have the 2 best players in the world on the same team, Draisaitl and McDavid. So you have that confidence about you that you have those 2 guys. And you can compete with anybody, which you can. Vegas is a good team. LA is a prominent playoff team. I think Vancouver can be a playoff team this year if they get their shit together. Calgary can be competitive. Wild card team, potentially. The rest will be what they'll be. They'll be there. They'll get some wins. But ultimately not really a factor when it comes to competing in the grand scheme. Okay, let's move to the Central Division. I'll go through quicker some of these teams. Chicago. They gave Spencer Knight a big extension, 3 years, $5.8 million. They got him in a Seth Jones deal. He's never proven he can be a number one, but he was drafted to be a number one, has had his difficulties, player assistance program. I don't mind the gamble. For Chicago, Frank Nazar, good player, got a big extension, 7 years. Oliver Moore, a young American coming in who showed well in college hockey. Connor Bedard, final year of his entry level, brutal sophomore season. It didn't bring much to the table, wasn't very productive, had nights where you barely noticed he was on the ice. Now, Nathan McKinnon did not have a good sophomore season. He didn't have a great third season. He didn't have a great junior season in the NHL. And he turned out to be Nathan McKinnon. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He's one of the best players in the world. So I'm not writing off Connor Bedard yet because he's so freaking talented. I do think he needs to put on size. I do think he needs to be more aggressive. I do think he needs better line mates, which Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks still, to me, haven't done enough of. Bertuzzi, Teravainen, Dickinson, Donato, Burakovsky, who they brought in, Taylor Hall, a lot of guys that are near the end. They're like, we can get one more contract to play in the NHL and play in Chicago and make good money and live in a cool city with a great fan base. Maybe go watch the Cubs at Wrigley in the playoffs. I think they'll finish last again, the Chicago Blackhawks. Mainly because their roster's bad and this division is really tough. Really tough. This is the Central. Move to Nashville. Easily the most disappointing team in the NHL last year, bar none. Bar none. After you spend money on Marchessault and Stamkos and O'Reilly, you're hoping for big things. And it just didn't happen. Disaster for them. Missed the playoffs by 1 million. And you're kind of banking on things getting better this year. They had Nick Hague from Vegas, bring in Eric Halla, Nick Perbix, some veterans there. Still at Forsberg, their longtime player, Michael Bunting. Let's see, Tanner Molendyk, their first rounder, now is AHL eligible, NHL eligible. So they got some guys, Brady Shea, Yossi, Justin Barron, who they traded with Montreal last year. UC Saros remains one of the better goaltenders in hockey. Could they have a resurgence? Yes. They're not an awful team. It went awful for them last year, no doubt about it. I don't have great confidence in them having a massive turnaround, and mainly because I like a lot of this division. The Central has some good teams. Central has competitive teams that haven't gotten worse. And while Nashville, I could say, Hague for Lauzon, I'll take that. Sissons, Halla, different players. Maybe these older guys can turn it around. I don't think Nashville's going to be a playoff team. I think it's going to be a failed experiment, quite frankly. They drafted Brady Martin high. He won't be playing this year. He'll be going back to junior. Yeah, I don't think Nashville's a playoff team for me. Maybe they will. It'd be fun if they could turn it. They'll be better than they were last year because it's hard to be that bad. We'll see. Utah. They lose Matias Maccelli, trade him to Toronto. See, like Utah, I look at them and go, could be decent. Logan Cooley, I like. Cole Baudouin, 20-year-old, eligible now. I like. Clayton Keller, really good year. Tej Ginla, Could make the team, potentially. Unlikely, but you never know. They had J.J. Peterka from Buffalo. I like J.J. Peterka. Could score. Competitor. Dylan Gunther. Jack McBain. He can be on my team any day of the week. Liam O'Brien. The big tuna. Fourth line guy. Stenlin. Lawson Krause. Tanev. Keller's probably their best player. Sergachev, their D, I don't like. Dursey, Mata, Marino, Nate Schmidt, Ian Cole, Bertuzzi. It's old defense. Velmelka, and they had Vanacek, who won a cup with Florida last year as their backup in net. They drafted Caleb Dunoyer from the Moncton Wildcats. He's ongoing wrist surgery, so he's not even participating in training camp with this team. But it's got something. It's got competitive. I think they're better than San Jose, Anaheim, Seattle, those teams in the Pacific, certainly. Well, we'll see with Utah. I think they've got upside, but it's not high-end playoff upside yet. Minnesota Wild. Biggest question mark for them is Kirill Kaprizov. He got offered $16 million a year to stay in Minnesota, and he didn't sign the extension. That tells me he doesn't want to stay because that would have made him the highest paid player in the league. And, interesting note, the current highest paid player on the Minnesota Wild is Matthew Boldy, who makes $7 million a year. So you would have made 9 more than your next closest teammate, which is absurd. I think they trade him some point this year because I don't think he's re-signing. Now the question will be, if you're in a playoff run, I think you have to get assets for him. Maybe you can do it in-season sign and trade and get a better haul than Toronto got for Mitch Marner. I think he's traded this year. That's an early prediction. Eriksson Ek, Marco Rossi, who they re-signed, took a while. Nico Sturm, Matthew Boldy, who's awesome. Hartman, Zuccarello, Marcus Foligno. Their back end's phenomenal. Bogosian, Brodin, Zeev Byam, who I think is going to be awesome. Brock Faber, my guy. David Jiricek still trying to find it, but he's Spurgeon, the captain, Middleton. That D can go. You got Gustafsson and Jesper Wallstedt, who you're hoping can develop into a potential future number one. Not a bad team. Playoff team last year. A playoff team most years, the Minnesota Wild, even though they have so many cap constraints. Credit to Bill Guerin. This might be the year for that to end because if you trade Kaprizov, I can't guarantee what you're getting for him. And that worries me. And I don't think you can keep him if you're Minnesota, you can't play the game of we're not going to move a guy because we want to be competitive because you're not winning the Stanley Cup. It's been proven. You're a first-round exit team every year. Every year. So you can't do it. I think Kirill gets traded. I think Minnesota misses the playoffs this year. They were a playoff team last year. I think they miss. They have to trade him. Have to. St. Louis. The surprise playoff team last year. Really, the biggest surprise. People expected Nashville. They did not expect St. Louis. They pushed Winnipeg to 7 games. It took Cole Perfetti heroics for them to lose. But St. Louis, they lose Nick Leddy to waivers, but they wanted to get rid of his cap number anyway. They traded Zach Bolduc to Montreal. They get Logan Mailloux in the trade. Dylan Holloway, year 2. Philip Broberg, year 2 in St. Louis. Kyrou, Braden Shen, Zach Dean, Oscar Sundquist, Pia Suter comes over from Vancouver. Rob Thomas, Buchnevich, Jake Neighbors. And then they got this chorus of youngsters. Dalibor Dvorsky, who was their first rounder 2 years ago, who played all of last year in the American League as a 19-year-old. Very good in the American League as a 19-year-old. I think he makes the team out of camp this year. Justin Carbonneau, who they drafted in the first round from Blainville-Boisbriand. I thought he was the steal of the draft because he went early 20s. He fell. People question his skating. I think he can be the next Tom Wilson. Probably won't make the team this early, but I have him shadowed for me because I think he's a good player, and he's going to be a force. Whenever he gets in the NHL, he will be a force. He also scored his first preseason game. And then you got Jimmy Snuggerud, who came to the team late, college player for a lot of years, really dominant, won a pair of gold medals at the World Junior Hockey Championships with Team USA. You got Mayu, Broberg, Falk, Pareko, Cam Fowler, Ryan Suter, the ageless wonder, Binnington and Hofer between the pipes. Solid team. Very much could be a playoff team again for me. Is Kaprizov better than anybody on this roster? Yes, but I don't think Kaprizov lasts the year. So, question mark there. I like the team. I like Binnington. He's going to play for Canada at the Olympics. I think he'll want to have a good year to prove that he should be the starter. Dvorsky, I think Neighbors, I think is only going to continue to get better. Rob Thomas, great. I think St. Louis is a wildcard team again. One of the two wildcard teams in the Western Conference. Let's go to Winnipeg, who beat St. Louis in the first round. They have Connor Hellebuck, the reigning, defending Vezina and Hart Trophy winner. He's won back-to-back Vezinas. Best goalie in the sport in the regular season. Playoffs, not so much. Can't win on the road. Disaster in the playoffs on the road. But Winnipeg had a really good team. A really good team. They won the President's Trophy. And they entered this season with a lot of expectations, if you ask me. Again, no huge shifts except adding Jonathan Taves, the hometown boy, to the roster. Back after a couple years' absence. I'm curious to see how he looks. I'm curious to see how he fits in. I expect him to be a third-line center for the Winnipeg Jets, where you got Scheifele. And you got Velarde, Connor back, Iafallo, a good player. Cole Perfetti, who had an awesome year, awesome playoff. Nemestikov, Adam Lowry, who's like a three center, so maybe Taves could be number two. Neil Pionk got a 6-year extension. Dylan DeMello returns. Morrissey, Colin Miller, Shen, Sandberg, Stanley. Your 7D that you had at the end of last year, you have them all again. Niederreiter and Comrie and Hellebuck, same guys. They couldn't get it done last year. Will they get it done again this year? Probably not. But I think if you're shovel day off, hard to attract guys in Winnipeg. You're keeping your guys. You're competitive. You won the President's Trophy. If you look and go, we have Scheifele, who is a top 35 player in the world. Hellebuck is the best goalie in the world. Morrissey and Pionk, that's a pretty damn good 1-2 punch on the back end. Kyle Connor is a stud. Scheifele's a stud. Maybe Velarde re-signed. Perfetti's a fun kid that finally got some look and he's producing. They'll be good again, Winnipeg. 100%. They're not falling off a cliff, the Winnipeg Jets this year. Colorado is frustrating to me because they're going to be a playoff team, but I don't love their team. I love McKinnon. I like Netcash. I love that Landeskog's healthy. He's going to play. Lekkonen's a good player. They re-up Brock Nelson after they got him at the deadline. Ross Colton, solid player. Lost Ryan Lindgren to Utah. They traded Charlie Coyle. Add Brent Burns. Blackwood and Wedgwood return. They disappointed in the playoffs. And they lost to Dallas, a team that was wounded and that they should have beaten. They didn't. And I love their top end guys, but after to me, McCarr's is amazing and McKinnon's amazing. But it gets weak, and Blackwood is iffy for me. Brent Burns at 40 plus, playing defense. Sammy Girard, small defenseman. Eric Johnson feels like he's been in the league for 30 years. I have question marks. Colorado playoff team, certainly. I don't think they're better than Winnipeg. I don't think they're better than the team we're going to talk about, and that's Dallas. Dallas, who made it to the conference final, lost to Edmonton again, and then fired Pete DeBoer when he called out Jake Ottinger after his poor performance in the series, including DeBoer pulling him in Game 5, a game they ultimately lost. He's come out and says he regrets that. I don't think he should have been fired. I thought it was Bush League, quite frankly, because I think he's one of the better coaches in the league, and he got a raw deal for being honest. And as a guy that likes to be honest, I don't think we should be punished for being honest, even though that seems to be the culture today. Glenn Gulutzan, who was a head coach in Calgary, was an assistant on the Edmonton bench for the last number of years, becomes the head coach in Dallas. His second chance at being a head coach. So they lose Pete DeBoer. They lose Matt Dumba. They traded him to Pittsburgh. Mason Marchment got traded to Seattle. They brought back Maverick Bourque, gave him an extension. Brought back Jamie Benn, longtime captain, on a one-year deal. Still have Rantanen, Jason Robertson, who was rumored to be traded all summer, still here. Seguin, healthy, missing most of last year with a hip injury. Rupe Hintz, Duchesne. Similar group. Leon Bachel, Thomas Harley, Heiskanen, Lindell, Labushkin. I'd love to see them get another high-end puck-moving defenseman. Competitive team, but they probably will. I'd like to see them get that before the end of the trade deadline. In a perfect world. But I look at Dallas and I look at Winnipeg, and I do think they're better than Colorado. Ottinger, ups and downs, but I think Ottinger at his best is better than Blackwood. Hellebuck's the best goalie in the sport. Regular season has never been an issue for him, really. But St. Louis, Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas, I think will all be playoff teams again. I think they're all in that higher echelon. I think they all get there. Because I like their rosters. I like their goaltending. They're stable. They have good defense cores all in all, and they have high-end talent that can get you a win on a night when you don't have your best stuff. So in saying that, 3 and you get 1 as a wild card, meaning you're probably going to get, I don't think you'll get 5 from the Central again. Who's that extra team? Who's the extra playoff team this year? I think Minnesota misses. I think it's going to be a Canadian team. I think it'll be Calgary or it'll be Vancouver that makes the playoffs. I'm leaning Vancouver to start the season, but they have such a bad health history, you just never know. I'll make more of a prediction on that fully in 2 weeks when we talk about the season, when we get closer to puck drop. because next Tuesday night we will preview the Metropolitan and the Atlantic divisions. That'll be next Tuesday. And we'll take a deep dive into them like I did tonight with the Central and the Pacific. Finally, before we wrap tonight, the Toronto Blue Jays clinched a playoff berth on Sunday. They are headed back to the playoffs after missing last year. They have a 2-game lead in the American League East and the tiebreaker over the New York Yankees. 6 games left, all 6 at home against the Boston Red Sox. The game's currently 0-0 in the second inning. And the Tampa Bay Rays this weekend. It's how it works. If they finish with the exact same record, the Blue Jays win the tiebreaker because of head-to-head matchups. They win the American League East. But they control their own destiny. They win their games this week, they go in. The Yankees play the White Sox and the Orioles. So 2 teams that are not playing for anything. But you never know. The Orioles gave them a tough game this weekend. So you could see some battles there for the Yankees. We'll talk more on Thursday. I think the Blue Jays are going to win the East. I don't see them blowing this. And I believe that they can beat anybody in the American League. Period. And looking, you got Tigers Guardians this week fighting for the lead in the American League Center. Tigers had a 15-game lead in early August. It's now a 1-game lead on the Guardians, who've won 15 out of their last 16 games. Tigers currently 1-0 in the 4th inning. That's a race. Phillies and Brewers fighting for top spot in the National League. Race there. Padres and Dodgers, the 2-game lead for the Dodgers right now. They also hold the tiebreaker. They're likely to play wild card weekend regardless, however. Astros, Red Sox, Guardians all fighting for that final wild card spot. You also have the big dumper who's got 58 home runs looking to break Aaron Judge's 62 this week. If he does that, give him the MVP. Come on. I think he should be the MVP already, but 58 home runs. He set the team all-time record, passing Ken Griffey Jr. for most home runs in a single season by a Mariner ever. But baseball will be fun to track over the next couple days as the Blue Jays just give up a base hit and the Red Sox are on the board. Red Sox lead 1-0 in the top of the second inning. We'll talk more about it on Thursday. Thursday's pod, we'll preview NFL Week 4, look at the betting lines and news and notes when it comes to injuries. We'll talk some college football as well. We'll get into the baseball from this week. We'll also preview the Ryder Cup, which starts on Friday morning, and look at the rule changes in the CFL. So all of that is coming on Thursday. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Appreciate the support as always. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.